three different common types of brake pads. You have organic, semi-metallic, and then you have ceramic or full ceramic. A pair of organic will usually cost about $20 or $25. Semi-metallic will be around $30, and full ceramic will be $40 for a pair. So my front pair was $43 or something, and my rear was $50. So that's almost $100 for a full set of brake pads, full ceramic, which is the best. Highly suggest you stay away from organic. It's cheap, it's portable, but it's not worth it at the end, because these brake pads last a long time anyways. The worst is organic. It's the cheapest one, very affordable, but at the end it is not worth it. You get so much brake dust, and even when it's brand new, it still has a possibility of squeaking, and even when you properly already greased it. So, and then the medium grade would be semi-metallic. It's still good, but the best is ceramic, which is the least amount of brake dust, and it has the least amount of noise, which almost every time will have no noise if you properly grease it. So I've had organic pads on my car, my current car now. It's so bad. Even when it's brand new, it still squeaks. So here's the generic box for my new one. I got full ceramic. Here's the pads. And then here's the rear. Got full sets for both front and rear. The front will most likely be bigger than the rear. This is most likely the case. Okay, that's how you can tell. Before you replace the brake pads into the car, you want to make sure that's properly greased. You can either have brake paste. This is from Mercedes. They use brake paste. And then this is brake grease, or caliper grease, however you call it. Both will work just fine. Basically what you want to do with the grease, you want to grease all over the backing of the brake pads and the edges on the sides. Do not grease the brake pads itself. So make sure you're really careful. You grease every edge on the sides. What this does is that the brake pads are held in by the caliper, and the caliper holds it in many different areas of the brake pads. And whenever you brake and then you release it, there's a possibility of squeaking because there is friction around these edges and even the back. So the grease will dramatically reduce the noise. Not only will it dramatically reduce it, but it will most likely cause no noise at all. So today I'm probably going to use the caliper grease. So here are the brake pads, rear, front, and I will demonstrate the greasing. You want to put on gloves, make this a lot less messier on your hands. Put grease on your finger, tip of your fingers, and just apply it all around the backing. You don't need a thick layer, as long as it's a coating on it. Everything you see. Okay, so even the protruding tabs right here, put it on there too. Alright, so this one has been fully greased. You can see the edges and the back, and that's finished. I'll do that to the other brake pads. Make sure you don't put it on here, okay? Just only the back and the edges. Here's the smaller one. So this is the back finished. Some brake pads have clips on the back and some don't. And sometimes they have an indicator tab where it will let you know if the brake pads are low and you need replacement. Here's an example. Here are the front brake pads. One of them has tabs, one of them doesn't. This means that both these will use on one corner of the car. You can't put two identical ones together. Most likely that's wrong. So this is one corner of the car. Here's the rear. One has clips in the back and one does not. Make sure both pads are usually different. When you take out the old pads, you'll see that which one ever has the clips, you replace the one with the clip. Which one does not have a clip, you do the same. Do the front and back just like that. Because I'm replacing all the front and the rear brake pads together, I'm going to jack up one side of the car so that the one entire side will be picked up, so I can work on the front and the rear. Make sure you use jack stands to support the car. Just raise it up until the tires are off the ground. Make sure both wheels are off the ground and then they're on jack stands. Now I'm going to take off the front and the rear wheels. Before you start doing this replacement, make sure you have a C-clamp. They're very cheap. Some brake calipers have a retaining clip right here. You're going to remove it. You can either use your hand or you just use a screwdriver to help you remove it. Whenever you're working with these types of retainer clips, you want to put on safety goggles because these can fling out. Here's the retainer clip, put it to the side. When working with brake calipers, there are two very important bolts that hold the calipers in place, that they pivot. It's this one right here and this one right here on the bottom. These two are very important. When you replace the brake pads, you have to loosen up both of them and remove one of them completely. You get to choose which one you want. I'm going to remove the bottom one completely because so it can swivel upwards, because I don't want to damage the brake lines. Some cars have a cover over the bolt, like mine, so you just take off the cover like that. Do the same for the bottom. So now you're going to loosen up both the lower and upper bolts. But for me, I'm going to completely remove the lower bolt. Some cars use a traditional socket, like one of these. And some cars use a Allen, like one of these. A hex bolt. This is the pin that holds the calipers in place. You can leave the top one in and you can swivel this whole mechanism out. Some cars you can swivel upwards or downwards. Most likely upwards because you want to protect the brake lines. But some cars, you cannot do that. You have to slide straight to the side. So you have to remove both pins. Here's the upper one. Now you can take the caliper out like that. Rest it on top of the rotors like this so that the calipers don't dangle with all its weight pulling on the brake lines. So just leave it like this, safe. These are very new, but they suck. They squeak so much. But they're fully organic. This is the bad ones I'm talking about. And the one behind the rotor is stuck onto here. It's stuck because it uses a pin to grab onto the piston. Just wiggle it out. Here is the other one. So the one in the rear has the clips, okay? Just remember where that goes. Because the new ones, you would do the same. Okay, just to make sure when you put in the new ones, that the back has the clips. Your car might be different, but you get the point. These are very new and they very suck. You can wipe the rotors clean, make sure there's no debris on it. And some people like to put brake cleaner on the rotors before they install the new pads just to make sure it's clean. You don't have to, but some people like it. Right, here are the beautiful new pads. So the front one has no clips and just match up the shape. This is the wrong way. You can see the curvature of the rotor is the opposite, so you want to make sure it's the same curvature as the rotors. And just slides right into here. Like that. Since the new pads are a little bit thicker, you need to compress this piston back out so it can fit and wrap around the new brake pads. So use your C-clamp and just push it together. People usually put their old brake pads in front of the pistons and they clamp it together so that it applies an even force onto the piston so you don't damage it. So just put a brake pad right there, take the clamp and clamp it together. You can see that the piston's compressing, which is really good. Just do it all the way until it kind of has resistance, meaning it's maxed out, and then remove the C-clamp. Take out the old pad. Now you can put the other brake pad on. Make sure the curvature matches with the caliper and rotor. I'm going to use a wrench to compress the clips a little bit so I can put it in. There you go. You can see that the pad is inserted all the way into the piston with the clips. Now put the whole caliper back together. Another good thing to do is grease up the caliper pins. So put grease and just grease up the pins. This helps it slide in and out without making noise and lubricates it really well. You can also use an anti-seize cream like this and put on the threads of the pins so that it doesn't get seized up. Just put a little bit, put on the threads like that. Alright, now you want to tighten the bolts until it's firm. Make sure you don't over tighten, okay? If your calipers came with a cover, just put the cover back on over the bolt or the pins. Now we're going to do the rear. Okay, the rear is very similar. This one also has a clip. Remove it. In order to remove the rear brake pads, make sure your e-brake is not on. Because if it's on, it means that it's still clamped to the rotors. So you need to remove the e-brake. For mine, the back has the clips. The front has nothing, okay? So these are the rear brake pads. Once again, they still have a lot of life to it. But since these are organic that I bought in the past, they suck. They squeak and they make dust too much. Alright, like before, you're going to need to compress the rear pistons. Some rear brake pistons require you to compress it while you twist it, okay? So make sure, if there's a groove on the brake pistons on the rear, then it's most likely a twist, okay? So just check. Okay, do you see the two holes on the rear brake pistons? That's a groove. There's different types of grooves. There's this one and the cross for Hondas. This means that you have to twist it in while you compress it. I'll show you how to do it. They tell you to have a tool to compress and twist it in. You can rent it at an auto store, but there's also a trick you can do. So here's my needle nose plier. I'll put it into the two holes and twist it clockwise, meaning you're gonna go into the brake pad caliper. Sometimes you can use a C-clamp too, if your car uses that method instead. So my situation is really cool. Basically, when I compress it with the C-clamp, it digs into the pistons and it allows it to twist at the same time. So this works for my car. If you need to use a caliper tool to compress the pistons, you can rent one. And this is what the box looks like when you rent one, and it comes with different size of grooves right here, different sizes. You find the right one for your car, and this is what the tool looks like. You have attached a groove to the piston, and then you have a plate up here. This plate provides an outward force away from the pistons. So when you twist down on the threads here, it will push down while it twists, while this holds it in place. So this plate is very important. And you just twist it and then it should compress itself. Like before, I'm gonna grease the pins. And then anti-seize on the threads. And I'll put the pins back. Alright, now that the front and the rear brake pads have been put together, just put back the wheels and you should be done. Before you drive, make sure you turn on the car and pump the brake pedal 20 or 30 times. Because what's happening is that when you put in the new brake pads, you compress the pistons earlier. And when you compress it, you usually do a little bit more than you need. And so right now there's a little gap between the pistons and the brake pads. So if you don't pump it beforehand, you're going to use the brakes and it's going to feel like there's no braking at all. So it feels like a car with no brakes, which is very dangerous. So you need to pump it back together so the pistons will compress the brake pads so that it's back to fitment. Okay, make sure you do that, it's very important. Because you might hit something if you just drive without pumping it. Good luck with everything.